Kentucky has a real law that says you cannot dye a baby duckling blue and sell it by itself. I'm not kidding. That's an actual statute on the books right now. This isn't one of those fake, weird law internet myths either. It's Kentucky Revised Statute 436.600, and it is very much real. It doesn't just cover ducklings, by the way. Baby chicks, other baby fowl, even rabbits. Dyeing any of them is illegal, and so is selling, displaying, or even just possessing one that's already been dyed. And here's the specific part that trips people up. If you're selling baby ducklings or chicks under 2 months old, you legally have to sell them in groups of 6 or more. Not 5, not 2, 6. Break either rule and you're looking at a real fine, somewhere between $100 and $500. So why would a state government care this much about the color of a baby duck? Turns out this goes back to a genuinely weird chunk of American history, dyeing baby chicks and ducklings pastel colors for Easter. The practice is at least a century old, but it exploded in popularity in the 60s and 70s. Pink chicks, purple chicks, baby blue ducklings, sold at markets and even 5 and dime stores as an Easter novelty. Some sellers dyed the shells and let the chicks hatch already colored. Others just sprayed or dipped the babies directly. Either way, it was rough on the animals. The dyeing itself was stressful, and a lot of these chicks and ducklings were bought on a whim by people who had zero plan for raising a live animal. Most didn't survive long, bought as an Easter basket accessory, then abandoned, neglected, or just not cared for once the novelty wore off. So states like Kentucky stepped in. Banning the dye job outright was the obvious move. But the 6 or more rule is the clever part. It's specifically there to kill the impulse buy. Nobody grabs 6 live ducklings on a whim the way they'd grab 1. Which means, technically, a Kentucky pet store today can sell you 6 perfectly normal, undyed ducklings without any issue. Dye one of them blue though, or try to sell just one, and now you've broken state law. And honestly, this law is a pretty good preview of what Kentucky's whole weird laws reputation actually looks like, because it's a mix of stuff that's completely real and stuff that's completely made up. Take this one. It's genuinely illegal in Kentucky to hunt an animal from a moving vehicle. Real rule, still on the books. Except there's an exemption for whales. Kentucky is not exactly known for its coastline. It's landlocked, 600 miles from the nearest ocean. Nobody's hunting whales from a truck in Kentucky. That line is almost certainly leftover boilerplate language nobody bothered to delete. Here's another real one. It's illegal in Kentucky to use a reptile in a religious ceremony. Fine of $50 to $100. That one's not random either. It's aimed squarely at snake handling church services, which are an actual, if rare, tradition in parts of Appalachia. And then there's my personal favorite. Until 1975, Kentucky law said no woman could appear in a bathing suit on a public highway, unless she was escorted by at least 2 police officers or armed with a club. It gets better. The law specifically did not apply to women weighing under 90 pounds or over 200, and it specifically did not apply to female horses. That is a real statute. Kentucky Revised Statute 436.140, repealed in 1975, but very real while it lasted. Now for the fakes, you've probably heard that Kentucky women legally need their husband's permission to buy a hat. That's not true. The statute people point to is actually about health certificates for imported bees. Nothing to do with hats or husbands. Same with the one about red underwear on a Sunday supposedly forcing you to accept the next marriage proposal you get. No statute, no court case. It's just internet folklore that sounds real enough to spread. So that's the pattern with basically every weird laws list. The real ones usually trace back to either genuine animal welfare or just legislative leftovers nobody cleaned up. The fake ones are just the versions that got a little spicier with every retelling. So next time somebody hits you with a did you know law, ask which kind it is. The blue duckling kind, actually real, actually enforced, or the red underwear kind, which is just a good story. Kentucky's not the only state with a law like that. Michigan actually put a guy on trial for something almost as small, cursing after falling out of a boat. It's a real statute, first passed in 1897. Any person who shall use any indecent, immoral, obscene, vulgar, or insulting language in the presence or hearing of any woman or child shall be guilty of a misdemeanor, later recodified as MCL 750.337 in 1931. For over 100 years, that law just sat there quietly. Then, in the summer of 1998, a guy named Timothy Boomer accidentally turned it into national news. Boomer was canoeing on the Rifle River in Aroostook County with some friends. His canoe hit a rock, tipped over, and he went face first into the water. What came out of his mouth next was, by all accounts, an impressive string of profanity. No slurs, no threats, just straight up cursing, the kind anyone might yell after an unexpected swim in their clothes. Problem is, a family with 2 young kids was canoeing nearby and heard every word. So did a sheriff's deputy patrolling the river, close enough to catch the outburst too. That deputy cited Boomer under the 1897 law, and prosecutors actually took it to trial. In 1999, an Aranac County jury found him guilty. His sentence, a $75 fine, plus 4 days of community service in a child care program. Boomer didn't let it go. With help from the ACLU of Michigan, he appealed the conviction, arguing the law was a relic with no business existing in a country with a First Amendment. In 2002, the Michigan Court of Appeals agreed with him, unanimously. The judges tossed the conviction, calling the statute unconstitutionally vague and a straightforward violation of free speech. One judge put it bluntly, "It would be hard to imagine a law more vague than this one." Nobody could say exactly which words counted as insulting enough to be criminal. Boomer's case got a nickname that stuck, the cussing canoeist. It made headlines across the country as a genuinely bizarre footnote in free speech law. And here's the wildest part. Even after being ruled unconstitutional in 2002, the law technically stayed on Michigan's books unenforceable but not erased for another 13 years. Michigan lawmakers finally repealed it in December 2015, officially wiping a 118-year-old cursing ban off the books. Here's the thing though, that wasn't even Michigan's only cursing law. There's a separate one, still real, that makes it a crime to profanely curse or swear by the name of God, Jesus Christ, or the Holy Ghost in public. That one comes from the same 1931 Penal Code, and it has one bizarre catch. Prosecutors only have 5 days after you swear to actually charge you. Miss the window, and you get away with it permanently. And when lawmakers finally repealed the canoe cursing law in that same December 2015 bill, they didn't stop there. The same piece of legislation also killed off Michigan's official ban on dueling and a separate ban on trampling blackberry bushes on someone else's land. Yes, until 2015, it was technically illegal in Michigan to fight a duel or to stomp through someone's blackberry patch. 2 totally unrelated crimes repealed in the exact same bill as the cursing law. Michigan's 1931 Penal Code is full of stuff like this. A man can still technically be charged with a 5-year felony for seducing and debauching an unmarried woman. A real statute, MCL 750.532, still sitting on the books today. There's also a law from 1953 that's actually still enforced. You cannot legally buy, sell, or even negotiate the price of a car in Michigan on a Sunday. That one isn't a myth. Dealerships genuinely stay closed for it. And because the 1931 code comes from an era when horses were basic transportation, Michigan still technically bans unhitching and driving away someone else's horse without permission, and letting a bull run loose on a public highway. Now, for a fake one. You've probably seen the claim that it's illegal to sleep in a bathtub in Detroit or in Clawson, Michigan. That one shows up on basically every weird laws listicle online, but nobody's ever produced the actual statute. No bill number, no court case, nothing on the state's books. It's internet folklore, not law. So same pattern as Kentucky. The real Michigan laws trace back to an ancient penal code nobody bothered to clean up, or a genuine free speech court case that made national news. The fake ones are just the versions that sound funny enough to keep getting repeated. 2 states, 2 totally different animals, literally. A duckling and a curse word, and somehow the exact same lesson. Half of what you've heard about dumb laws is dead real, and the other half is just a good story that never happened.